What are the top 5 collector tanks that you might want to have in WOT Blitz? And we start off with the first one, the Badger. Now, the thing about the Badger is that it's obviously a tank destroyer and it's also not the fastest of vehicles, so you're going to have to be very careful in how you select vehicles, and that is true for any vehicle. It has to fit with your playstyle. Now, the Badger has almost 4,000 DPM. You can get there if you have the right equipment, which is quite insane. The accuracy and the aim time is very good as well. You have on top of that 10 degrees of gun depression. The mobility isn't really that great. Powder weight ratio 14, which is a lot better than the mouse over there, but it's still not great. The hull armor, well, it only has a hull, it doesn't have a turret, but the hull armor is pretty good. However, the lower plate can be pinned still very easily, and it doesn't have a turret, which means your front armor is always going to be pointing where your gun's pointing. And also, your track wheels are very big, so can be penetrated somewhat easier, so that's something you want to watch out for. Now, the thing is, collector tanks and premium tanks are essentially the same thing. There is no difference besides the, well, adage that a collector tank can technically be nerfed, so can a premium tank, so essentially there is no difference. It's just two different colors of it. It works the same. So even for some premium, like for example an M60 is a premium tank, but it doesn't make any credits. So, and some collector tanks do make credits and some don't, so it doesn't really make any sense. So you wouldn't want to rely on the collector premium standard difference alone. Obviously for this video I'm also going to be ignoring all the extremely low tier ones, because first of all you can get them for free in the battle pass for most of the time, and they're not really relevant to the game because, I mean, who cares about something like a KV-13. So the Badger, though, has 4,000 DPM. It does need that, because without that, it would not really be worth it. Because that's the only thing that really redeems this vehicle. And that makes it somewhat of a pretty damn formidable vehicle. Now, you also have something on the E3, which plays somewhat similar, be it with higher alpha damage, but lower DPM. So you can sort of get a variety of this thing completely for free, and don't have to bother with the Badger, and that's what I would recommend as well. Before you pick up any premium tank or collector tank, always get the standard vehicle that is somewhat equivalent to it first, because why would you spend money if you don't even know whether you can use it or not? And with the Badger, that is a very big problem, because the Badger can be very hard to use. It's a tank that can excel in positions where you can simply brawl with the enemy and use the extremely high DPM of the tank, but you still have to know how to properly position it, otherwise you're gonna not have a great time, because you can get circled very easily by medium tanks, and even some heavies, they're gonna have a pretty easy time against you if you're not competent with the Badger. Now, let's get rid of the IS-8 here. The problem with the Badger is the gameplay is kind of boring, because it's slow. It always does the same thing. And second, we have the Object 752, which for some reason is a collector. I don't quite know why, but I guess it is now. Now, this one and the Kennedy one are really the only tier 9s that I would really consider buying. At 2,500 DPM, 2-shot autoloader, 0.35 accuracy. It's got some gun depression as well. The mobility is similar to the Badger. It's fine for a heavy tank. The armor on the turret is very good. The hull is fine. However, you can obviously penetrate the lower plate. This is an oscillating turret, which means that the cupolas will elevate if you depress the gun, which is going to make it quite hard to hide those if you are trying to play hull down a situation somewhere. So be aware of that. Your cupolas will always be exposed if you use your gun depression. Now, 2-shot autoloaders can be somewhat annoying at times, because if you only get one shot, only you have to reload 2 shells, even though you only have to reload 1. So that can be a very big disadvantage for 2-shot autoloaders, and you always, with any autoloader, want to have the time and the place to be able to reload, because if I would be pushed right now, that would be really, really bad. So you'll have to be very, very careful playing this vehicle. And again, it's a tier 9. I wouldn't really recommend tier 9 for anyone, really, because it's like, it's a bit of a pointless tier. I mean, you can get more credits at tier 8 for the most part, and you can get more damage at tier 10, so it's like, you're trading neither, and you get nothing. So I definitely would not recommend picking up tier 9s for the most part. However, this thing is pretty damn good, and let's skip the reloads here, because I mean, nothing's gonna happen. And now, it is a 4v4 here, and at the beginning of the battle, those two Centurions, they tried to go to the heavy side, so basically have zero trust in them right now, which is something that can be very useful. Now that Lorraine's gonna, no, don't do that. But yeah, that's one of the very important things, to learn to read the team. Like, can I rely on this teammate? Can I not? Now, The important thing here is to take out this Lurvy. And now the Centurion could very easily push the Lurvy and just very easily one-shot him. The Lurvy can't kill the Centurion can easily kill the Lurvy. But what does the Centurion do? He attacks the ISU and dies. Now what I'm going to have to do here is finish off the Lurvy. And now, this is going to be very annoying because we're both one-shots. So obviously, going to reload here. Because why would I keep that one shell? I have enough time. And now, here is what happens. This tank is definitely a good vehicle. But it is not going to happen often that a ISU 152 screws up that badly. Lovely. Now number 3, we have the VK90. But the only tank where side scraping is really, really good. Now, 2.6k DPM, 460 alpha damage, 0.32 accuracy, 10 degrees of gun depression, only over the sides, however. And then speed, it's a bit slower than the two we mentioned previously, but it has an insane amount of armor on it. Now, side scraping is what this thing is good at. That's what this thing can do all day long. And the T10, it's pretty much the only one that is truly excellent side scraping. The VK72, it can't side scrape. And the F215B, well, it can try, but you can still hit the part below the turret because that's where the turret ring sits on. This vehicle, however, does not have any weaknesses. The side is completely flat, which means you can side scrape excellently. The problem is side scraping in Blitz is very rarely useful, so having the turret at the back is often a disadvantage rather than an advantage. But because of the insane armor on this vehicle and relatively good gun for the type of gun that it is, it's obviously nowhere near the gun of like a Leopard 1 or a 215B, but for what type of gun it is pretty solid. And here's kind of the problem with having the turret at the back. You have to peak your engine compartment first, unless you want to, again, set up a complex side scrape, which I can't be bothered at this point. To be honest, it can be a neat trick to know, but in a lot of cases, I don't find it too helpful because the enemies aren't that competent anyway, so you can just fight them normally and they're not going to be able to fight back anyway. But that's just me. So, the VK90 in the shop for 20k gold, something like that, would be a great thing to have if you are into something like a mouse, like a VK72, and you want a super heavy that can actually super heavy, because this thing, unlike the mouse, can't be penned in the turret cheeks. A very high penetrating tank destroyer like a whole Re might be able to, but in a mouse, pretty much anything can penetrate the turret cheeks of that one. And it is also a lot faster than a mouse, and obviously, the one thing they have to consider is the E100. The E100 might be able to rival it. This thing's got 460 alpha damage, the E100's got 640. Playstyle there is a bit different, especially with this thing being a lot more geared towards side scraping, and the E100 not having any turret armor for the most part. So, basically, if you get the E100, and you enjoy the E100, and you think of getting the VK72 and getting the mouse, don't get those two. Get this one. Because, first of all, you don't have to pain yourself through those tech trees, and you will end up with a way better tank as well. So pretty much in terms of the best super heavy, this is it. It doesn't have the best alpha damage necessarily, but it's got the best all-round package. You don't have the turret at the front. That would be just that more lovely. But unfortunately, it doesn't. But number 4 does have the turret at the front. And it does have a lot of other features that you might want. And that's unfortunate. Poor guy. Now the Super Conqueror is, well, not the best one, but that has a reason, but we'll get to that very soon. But I would definitely recommend picking up the Super Conqueror. It's pretty easy to play, and it is very good as well. And also put a black camo on it, because why not? Now, you got almost 3k DPM, you got 0.35 accuracy, which is one of the big weaknesses of this thing. You've got 10 degrees of gun depression, 400 alpha damage, 260 penetration, so that's very standard there. The 0.35 accuracy is the only real downside of this vehicle, but if you know how to somewhat aim, you'll still be perfectly fine with that. Now, this is mines. This is where the Super Conqueror lives, because this turret is pretty much impenetrable. You can get through it in very tiny spots, but if you keep the tank moving back and forth, speaking of movement, powder weight ratio is somewhat worse, ideally, unfortunately, because it's about 13, but the armor is very good, and the traverse speed is not great either, so that's something that it could do better, but it doesn't really need that necessarily. Also doesn't have any camo, but who cares? So this thing is very, very good at sitting in a spot, absolutely dominating. And unlike the Badger that we had at the beginning, it has a turret, which means it can move and maneuver and shoot at different tanks while driving in a different direction. The Badger can only shoot at what's in front of it. This thing can do other things. Definitely recommend picking up the Super Conqueror. Now in this game, it's 5v5. The TVP has obviously exploded at the beginning, which is not good, but we know where all the enemies are, which is a good thing. So now they're all sort of in front of me. I kind of want to get out the bat shot here first. I'm trying to somewhat get up the hill here, but I'm thinking like, no. The thing is, I don't want to get shot by the T95. I want to preserve my hit points right here, because I might need them later. And there you go, I get very lucky with the side, and that was a heat round by the KPZ, which is about the worst thing you can do against this vehicle. But now, we're going to be very quick. 3v5. There's a guy right there behind me. It's an E5. It's a very big, dangerous target. So what I'm going to do now is I'm not going to try to fight the guys behind me. I'm going to go jump forward, right? Because these two guys are easier to deal with than that E5 that is now able to dig himself into our spawn. These guys are out in the open. They can't do anything. I'm fast enough to get around the extremely slow T95. It might even have a stock engine based on how he moves. I can get around the T95, completely neutralize him, and now take out the KPZ while the T95 can do absolutely nothing. And now the CC helps out with a shot into the T95, and now both are gone. And now this game has turned from a 5v3 into a 3v2. And it's pretty much already won. Because the Projector is a one-shot, and the E5 is down there on the low ground. And he will not really be able to escape me at all. The Projector isn't even paying attention, so all we're going to have to do now is have a shot, and there we go. So definitely, the Super Conqueror is a tank that you should eventually pick up in your... If obviously, only pick it up if you can afford it, and if you actually want it. If you, for example, really want to play the Badger, and if that's your playstyle, then absolutely do that. But to a general player and a overall recommendation from me, get a Super Conqueror. Now, why is the Super Conqueror not at the top of this list? Well, that's why. The Smasher is evil. There we go. I said it. See? Now, this thing is unfortunately never really sold properly. It's sometimes given away in crates that have no charms, which means it's impossible to get it, but I don't think we have to talk about the stats here. It's 640 alpha damage. You got like 2 million damage per minute if you fire HE. The mobility and the armor, it doesn't matter because the gun's gonna explode absolutely everything. So, yeah. This thing is one of the very few vehicles where one characteristic carries it all, right? Because the problem with, like, say, a KB2 is that it's inaccurate. It can't hit anything. It can't penetrate anything. This vehicle is accurate enough to hit most of your shots. I mean, you won't see that in this game, but it is extremely accurate. And it can also pen everything. You have AP for everything that can't be penned with HE, and then you have Heat with 250 pen. That is going to go through everything that your measly AP is not going to be able to handle. So the gun makes the tank in this case, and that is very rare that one feature does carry the entire tank. It's sort of a bit true with the Badger as well, but that also does have the armor. The armor on the Smasher is not really something you want to rely on. I mean, it might be effective against some tier 6s, but if you eventually end up in a tier 8 match, it's not going to mean anything. You're going to get a couple of random bounces here and there, but in a grand scheme of things, if they can see your hull, they'll be able to penetrate it. It's going to go straight through. Now, about that. Because I wanted to show this game specifically, because it's somewhat imperfect. Because even though the Smasher is completely insane the way it is, and it should not exist this way, should probably reload about 4-5 seconds slower, to be honest, to make it balanced, then it still is a tank that can be very, very annoying to play. Because sometimes the Smasher doesn't like you. And if the Smasher doesn't like you, you can't do anything about it. I'm still full HP at this point. Done 2,000 damage already. And now I want to get this T49 here because he can run away. And him running away would be really bad. Now luckily, neither the T49 nor the M41 know that they're light tanks, and they just sit in place and get finished off easily. Now the Super Conqueror is the best choice out of the list that I really recommend to everyone, but the Smasher is completely insane.